Welcome to the Oneness Movement for Humanity. Our collective destiny is glorious. Let's work together.
Hi everyone, my name is Mit Gopal. Today's podcast is a reading from my book, Preserving Oneness of Humanity. The title is, What is Race? In most social environments, I am hyper aware of the racial composition of any group. Whether at a party, in the subway, at a mall, or at the gym, I notice the color of people, their clothing, and the way they interact with each other. Frequently, I find I am the only person with the darkest skin. Also, I feel very comfortable in any mix. But when I am with my family, in which the variation is from blue-eyed blonde to black, I see everyone in terms of my relations. Wife, daughter, son, nephew, in-law, brother, brother-in-law, sister, or grandchild. Beyond my perception, what science says about race? Race science, going back as far as 1600, has weighed in on the definition of human species. This knowledge has evolved over time. Early documents, most of them authored by Europeans, concluded that the whiter the color of the skin, the smarter the race. Early classifications contained 5 major groups: Caucasoid, Negroid, Mongoloid, Australoid, and Amarant. With further analysis and study, the categories were reduced to 3: Caucasians, Negroid, and Mongoloid. This race study reaffirms the idea of superior and inferior races based on skin color. As a result, preserving one's pure race has become the goal of many groups, to such extent that members marry first cousins. Furthermore, from the late 19th century onwards, the concept of the Aryan race has been used as a form of scientific racism, a pseudoscience used by proponents of Nazism and neo-Nazism to promote the ideology of discrimination and supremacy. Aryanism developed as a racial ideology that claimed the Aryan race was the master race. Many have adopted this concept of superiority in different parts of the world, including the Middle East, Iran, and India. The Nazi Bureau of Race Research bestowed Aryan status to all Japanese people. In 1936, in his political testament, Hitler stated, "Pride in one's own race, and that does not imply contempt for other races, is also a normal and healthy sentiment." I have never regarded the Chinese or the Japanese as being inferior to ourselves. They belong to ancient civilizations, and I admit freely that their history is superior to our own. Fortunately, in the last 7 decades, the idea of race superiority has been slowly dying. In 1944, Ontario's Racial Discrimination Act prohibited any signs or publications expressing racial or religious discrimination. And in the same year, the province passed a regulation under the Community Halls Act to prescribe discrimination in the halls that receive public funds. Other provinces followed suit. In Western countries, any racial discrimination is prohibited by law and punishable should one be found guilty of such action. This is a good trend in the evolution of human consciousness. It is also true that we have a long way to go. What do biologists, scientists, anthropologists, and theologians think of race? The concept of pure race is a myth. This idea of a pure breed only exists in animals. Pure horse breeding is a preoccupation of some. Realistically, with humans, there is no such thing as a pure race. For the sake of our education, let's debunk this myth of race superiority once and for all. Let's start with India. The population classification of Indian subcontinent is complicated. The habitation of the Dravidian race in ancient India goes back to 5th century BCE and is mostly found in the south. Anthropologists classified this group as having physical features to Australian Aboriginals. From the north, the Aryan race, a subrace to the Caucasoid race, and coming from Europe through Persia, moved into part of the Dravidian territory. Furthermore, the Mongolian invaders, notably Genghis Khan, from a nomadic tribe north of China, ruled part of India. Also, waves of migrants and invaders over many millennia pulverized the racial identity of India into a mixture of all racial categories. The Middle East was also a major crossroad. When I lived in Israel, I visited Tel Megiddo, one of the most interesting historical and archaeological sites. It has many layers of cities built over many centuries. The site was inhabited from approximately 7000 BCE to 586 BCE. During the Bronze Age, Megiddo was an important Canaanite city-state, and during the Iron Age, a royal city in the kingdom of Israel. Megiddo drew much of its importance from its strategic location along the trade route of the ancient Fertile Crescent, linking Egypt with Mesopotamia and Asia Minor. Over many centuries, the Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, Philistines, Turks, French, and British have invaded what is known as modern Israel. Intermingling and crossbreeding between groups have increasingly mixed the gene pool, thus diluting the concept of pure race. Some in this part of the world may still believe that they belong to a pure race, but history has proven them wrong. France, like many other European countries, have been occupied by Greeks, Romans, and Germans, and British, thus making its population a mixture of many types of blood. In modern times, migrants from all over the world have moved to different European countries, and none can claim to be a pure race. These three examples clearly show that the concept of pure race is fast crumbling in our modern world. But the most important finding is in biology. The latest frontier for the biologists is DNA and its influence on race identity. We know that our hair, skin color, eyes, height, and body frame are shaped by the DNA inherited from both parents. The most revealing aspect of this science is that there is no such thing as a pure race. The genetic makeup of any person has characteristics of many racial backgrounds. For example, a blue-eyed German may have inherited genes from the French, English, Greek, Indian, Persian, and so on. It is common knowledge that Africa was the cradle of the first humans. From those early generations, people migrated to all parts of the world, making all of us undoubtedly part of the human race. According to biologists, each human being, regardless of background, is 99% similar to any other human being in the world. The physical qualities pale compared to our intellectual capacities. One of the most outstanding characteristics is the power of understanding, a unique capacity among all the inhabitants of this planet. As an example, children all over the world are capable of learning math, an ability reserved to humans. Regardless of ethnic or economic background, schools around the world teach science and arts to young minds. Children do well in these subjects and other activities. The ability to understand the nature of things around us is one of the great equalizing forces of our time. a way to promote empowerment, justice, and oneness. Through understanding, we gather knowledge and are able to accomplish myriad feats in science, space travel, and medicine. In the last century, Europeans and North Americans have been at the forefront of astonishing inventions. Now, it is true that the Chinese, Indians, Africans, and South Americans can accomplish whatever the Caucasians have done in the past decades or centuries. This emerging trend, which extends throughout the world, demonstrates that the idea of superiority or inferiority based on race is diminishing. Besides the physical and intellectual, there are spiritual powers that cannot be ignored. Humans are capable of love, compassion, justice, and forgiveness. These spiritual capacities are universally recognized as part of our human consciousness. Therefore, in my opinion, while we cannot ignore DNA as part of our bodily makeup, the most important aspect of human nature is our spiritual experience. Unfortunately, science so far has paid too much attention to racial identity, which divides us, while at the same time it has been incapable of exploring the higher nature of being a human that unites us. Finally, what is in store for humanity? In the Baha'i faith, it has been said, "Close your eyes to racial differences and welcome all with the light of oneness." Given the facts about racial consciousness previously presented, I firmly believe that humanity is moving ever closer towards harmony, justice, and prosperity.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to listen to more content on the Oneness Movement, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment. See you next time.